The first question I'm going to ask is actually my question, and I'm going to ask the question, the basic foundational question of what is sacred sex? And so my first question is really my own. What is sacred sex? And the answer is that it's really whatever that means for you. That's how I look at it. I don't think there's one answer or there's one way to make sex part of your spiritual life. But I'm going to say what it is again for me. And that is when I studied sex, and I studied this after I'd been a midwife for many years, it was very clear to me that sex and birth were intimately entwined. And as a midwife for over 20 years, I think birth is sacred. I was at the incarnation of 500 human beings. So how could birth be sacred if the act that makes it of sex isn't sacred? So to me, there's always been this foundational idea that our sexuality is an integral part of who we are, and our spirituality is as well. So to me, these things have always been joined. When I retired from birthing babies and I started really studying sexuality in more depth, I did a number of classes and workshops and read a lot of books from different sacred sexuality traditions. And when I talk about the sacred sexuality traditions, I mean things like Tantra, Taoist sacred sexuality traditions, some Native American ones, and some cross-cultural study of many different cultures. And what I started to realize was that, first of all these cultures recognized sex as something holy, that was something sacred, that had a spiritual dimension to it. And without going into sort of an orthodox anything, because I'm just not, I borrow and I pick and I put things together and create these sort of integral models. What I started to understand was that while there may be some very different ideas about sexuality in these different cultures, there were some things that were totally the same. Every single one of those cultures that revered sexuality also had gender equality, for example, but they also had some ideas about sexual energy, about the purpose and the function of sex, and where we could go with it. So here we are in this little webinar where we're going to talk about sacred sexuality, and I'm going to be drawing on all of the history, all of the traditions, and hopefully we'll find out what it means for you, because that's really what I'm about. It's not about me imposing my ideas of spirituality onto anyone else. It's about helping you find your own path. So to me, the connecting the sacred or the spiritual, however you want to frame that, and whatever that means to you with your experience of the erotic is my intention.